Hello, Ignacy and Portal Games.
And this is the Podfather of Gaming, Stephen Bonacore. You are listening to Board Games Insider, episode 186. Oh my goodness. And we're recording this on March 10th, 2021. Board Games Insider is a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. And Tom Vassell is lonely. I mean, why else would he call me on the phone regularly for no reason other than to tell me something that's going on in his life? Maybe I need to be nicer to Tom Vassell. What do you think, Ignacy?
That's interesting news. So he's actually calling you and you chit chat. This is you, arch enemies. What's
Do,
going on?
do you know, like, literally, there's like 3 people in my life that I will just answer the phone when I see their name come up. My mother, my brother, who like is gonna tell me something like important about like a financial thing, or maybe we, something we have to do together because he lives down here. And Tom Vassell. That's it. Jason Levine calls me constantly, and I decline, because he doesn't respect boundaries, and he doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can say that. And I told him that. I said, if you need me, just text me first to make sure I'm available. But he refuses. I love Jason. He's a pain in my butt. Tom has been so nice to me lately. I'm suspecting something's up. What does he want?
It may be a trap.
It's a trap. All right, Ignacy, tell us what is happening at Portal Games.
Shipping finally is happening. I don't know if you saw the news. We should cover it, by the way. It's not in the show notes. Maybe we'll do it quickly.
Yeah, we can
about
do it.
all these China ports situation. So maybe we'll go back to this in the news section. Right now, Vienna Connection, our newest game, spy game, finally left China, finally left port, and is on the way to America, to our warehouse in Florida. So as I was assured today, the street date is safe. The game will be released as planned in May, but it was a lot of pressure and unnecessary stress, I would say, to finally get it out. It was printed a few weeks ago, and then it stayed in the port, waiting for the container. It's a big story worldwide right now for each industry about the lack of containers. So good news for everybody. Yes, Vienna Connection is still on schedule. It is on ship right now, and it will be in stores late May. For brag of the week, terrible situation. It is one of these very rare weeks when I have nothing to brag about, which is it makes me sad. But I promise I will get some awards soon. it must happen. Pre-orders and street dates. 51st State Moloch on pre-order, as we reported last week, and I have final street dates for this product, so I can announce it April 8th. So very, very soon, in 1 month, it will be street dated, and in upcoming days we will start shipping to our fans who pre-order from our website. Is a standard policy for Portal Games. The same was for Stronghold Games back then. If you pre-order from the publisher, he respects that and ships earlier. So all the fans of 51st State who pre-order from our website, very, very soon you should have it in your house. And the street date, worldwide street date, April 8th. What's happening in HQ additionally? Stronghold Undead finally reached America, our warehouse in America. We are using QML, one of the biggest logistics centers in our industry, and they are preparing shipping to backers all the copies of Stronghold Undead. So we are very happy to finally close the whole operation. Still, I'm very, very sorry, still we are not solved the problem with UK. Our UK copies are still in our warehouse waiting for the documents from UK. And just to explain, maybe once again, I really, besides making jokes and being silly, I really like to educate, to explain how the industry works, because maybe you support a different Kickstarter project, maybe you supported a different publisher, and you don't have your copy because you're in UK. So once again, to explain everybody, now to ship product to UK, you have to have a VAT number, and is a tax number in UK, so the tax is done right. And at this point, as you can imagine, and now I can explaining it very, very simply, all these companies from the Europe, and I guess also from America, submitted documentations to UK to have this number. and they are like overloaded with all these, files and submissions, and they are not answering. We submitted these documents on January 4th. We got information that we are lacking one of the documents, so we resubmitted on January 14th, and this is now 2 months later and 3 months later, and we have no response. This office, this tax office in Great Britain, is just overloaded with the work. They were clearly not prepared, which is crazy, for all these submissions they will get from all other businesses from the whole Europe to have this tax number. So this was happening with something called Undead, and I guess for many other Kickstarter projects. Backers in UK, please be patient, but it's not our intention to pay for the warehousing of your copies in our warehouses. This is basically math for that. Funny and not funny news from the office. We had a COVID situation in the office.
Oh, no.
One of our employees, yes, one of our employees has a COVID. I say it lightly because it is no difficult case. He's fine. He's in the home office. All the companies making fun of him, so it is like this a lighter case. But of course,
Right.
it's good that it is this lighter case,
Sure,
not
sure.
the serious one. Funny enough, to make it even more silly, he was working this last week all week from home, and he only appeared to after hours to play with us games, and he had COVID. How stupid it is. But luckily he didn't pass this COVID to anybody else. Everybody else is okay. So that's why I'm making a silly comment about this, because of course it's a very, very serious topic. That's what's happening. So basically, good news, the Vienna Connection finally on the ship, 51st State Moloch, we are shipping to you if you pre-order from us, and so-called Undead, we are shipping in North America. Basically, all these projects that we are teasing for weeks and months are slowly getting to you.
I have a friend of mine back in New Jersey. His name is Matt Meadow. I can say his name. I'm not sure. I think he might listen. And he had COVID a few months back, and he was hit hard. I mean, he's fine, 100% fine, but he was hit pretty hard. He was out of it over a week, really bad. But the one time he showed up was we were going to do some gaming on Saturday night, and he's like, he would use his Zoom account. He started the call and he gamed. And it was light, fluffy party type games. But I'm like, Matt, you don't look good. Maybe go back to your room and lie down. It's okay. We'll take care of this. It's like, no, man, this is making me so happy. I got a game. So Matt's good. Matt is
we
okay.
gamers.
You're a little over the top sometimes with the way that we, treat our time and our health sometimes. So take care of yourselves out there. All right, over here at the Podfather Gaming, first, the challenge of the week. I haven't been talking like challenging you guys as much, but I'm going to do this one again. I had mentioned it 2 months ago that, I'd started a group on Facebook, as well as the page, the Podfather of Gaming. Now, under that, there's a group, the Podfather of Gaming group. And I'd love for you guys to join that, because what do? We literally just have fun, silly conversations. It's got to be, if not the most positive group on Facebook, in the top, pantheon of positivity, fun, silliness. So go over, join the Podfather of Gaming group, and watch the conversations and the making fun of Bonacor and just stuff like that. It's really good. And then while I'm at it, of course, another reminder that we have the happy hour every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern and Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And that's still going strong. We have a steady group of the same regulars that show up, about 2 dozen of those, something like that. Plus new people keep showing up. And you can get the link to come and join us on the Podfather of Gaming page. And you get the Zoom link, show up, and you can watch it. Of course, you can watch it on Facebook later. But if you join live, we hang out and we talk and we have a fun time. So check that out. Thursday, 7 p.m., Sunday, 4 p.m. And you get the link. Yep.
I need to add that on this Facebook group, Steven posted yesterday hilarious post about Lord of the Rings and D&D. I read it. It's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you. That was, and again, I don't take credit for the actual post. I shared the post from somebody else. It is astonishingly funny. It's about the Lord of the Rings Explained as a D&D group that has gone over the top. And you've got to read this. You will be laughing. It's a fairly long sequence of posts, but it's worth reading it. It's that good. So check us out. Thank you, Ignacy, for that. What else do I have? Okay, news of the week. You know, I keep receiving some very interesting things from my industry friends and just friends of the show. And this week I got something really special. And to see this, you're going to have to look at the YouTube channel because I'll describe it for you. But to see this is to be amazed by it. So Ignacy, I don't know how much you can see this, but this is a 3D box cover from Space Cadets, the original Space Cadets. This was sent to me by Jeff Engelstein, good friend, designer with Sydney Engelstein and Brian Engelstein of the original Space Cadets. And it's under glass, and it's like with 3 pieces of glass on the inside that show the different like layers to get of the box cover to give it this 3-dimensional effect. It's unbelievably beautiful. And he sent it to me. Why did he send this to me? Because on the back, he signed it and he said, "Here's to 10 years of Space Cadets and friendship, Jeff Engelstein." So I was so excited to see this. It's beautiful. So I really, again, check it out here on the YouTube channel. I think you're going to like what you see. And this is going to go on my wall or back there on my shelf at some point in the very near future, probably the next time that we do the podcast, it'll be back there. So it was just so nice. And Jeff, thank you so much for that gift. I mean, can't talk enough about it.
It's amazing. And can I ask to add my shipping address to the show notes in the final scoring?
So you get nice things? You're already getting your cookies. That's great. That's great. What else? I mean, let's go down to conventions. So I have some rumor on conventions. Signs are pointing to Gen Con actually happening. So I think we might have mentioned that they sent out 2 surveys about a week or so ago. One was for exhibitors only, and one was for attendees. Of course, I got both. I'm on both lists. And those were filled out, I assume, by everybody. And I filled out my opinion on whether they should run and how they should run. They asked some questions about vaccines and social distancing and masks and all this. I filled those out. And between that, plus some unsubstantiated buzz, it's not like I know a guy who told me something, but I know a guy who knows a guy who knows that kind of thing. It's one of those, it's a rumor. It looks like Gen Con is gearing up to run the show with restrictions of some type, right? We don't know exactly, but I'm thinking with reduced capacity, possibly. Again, as part of the buzz, reduced capacity, and maybe with requiring vaccines. Don't know for sure. This is unsubstantiated, but it's looking better to run. And I'll have more after the show at that bottom segment of more information about this that I have. I want to save something for the end because Ignacy keeps forgetting to put something there at the end. So I'm going to do that. All right, Ignacy, let's get over to the event deck. All right, so we don't have a lot of news, but we got some really, really cool news here. So the first thing is we are so mainstream now. The New York Times had an article on role-playing games. I just want to read a little bit because it obviously goes on long. It's a big article in the New York Times. Escape your reality with role-playing games. Let the good times roll as old-school tabletop RPGs have taken off online. This was published March 6th, so just a few days ago. Recently, a wizard, a druid, a cleric, a ranger, and an artificer, and a couple of bards met on Zoom. The bards fought, the druid baked cookies, the cleric, wearing nifty resin dragon horns, took hallucinogenic mushrooms. Together, they explored candy-coated barracks, searching for an elusive queen. Cat jokes crowded the chat. This was an average evening for Mike Sell, a professor of English at Indiana University of Pennsylvania, who moonlights as an online game master. On Tuesdays, he gathers friends, colleagues, partners, and kids and has them ramble remotely through his role-playing game, Curse of the Sugar Plum Fairy, a madcap riff on the Nutcracker and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The tagline, "Who can take a rainbow and wrap it in a scream?" He then goes on to talk about modern role-playing games debuting in the 1970s, Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and the inventors of D&D, and how this has proliferated, throughout time, over time, and now has moved online, of course, due to COVID. So I think, Ignacy, I think you found this article, right? Which is amazing.
Oh, right? Maybe yes. I don't know. Maybe yes.
Maybe
yes.
You did?
No, yes. I saw it. Yes, I saw it on social media and passed it here. Yes.
I loved it. I mean, this is another one of those, quintessential moments, I think, for us as hobby gamers. When the New York Times published the article about the Green Bay Packers offensive linemen, and these are the biggest guys in football. They weigh 300 plus pounds each. These guys getting together to play Settlers of Catan now. Yep. That was a moment, in gaming history, in hobby gaming history, where, wow, the geeks shall inherit the earth, right? It's like amazing that this is happening, and I'm so happy about it. Any other comments, Ignacy?
Yeah, I just know it from the stories. I wasn't there back then, but I remember that back then there were the times when role-playing games were described in the newspapers as these satanic cults.
That's
so
right.
I say things changed over the years, and yes, we are in a much better position these days. So I'm very, very proud to be a geek these days.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Absolutely fantastic. So we have news of the first convention of 2021.
This is the news submitted by my Mary, because she's doing a conventions for Portal Games, and they contacted us, and she's in touch with them. So support is sponsored by Mary News.
This news sponsored by Mary Chevicek, who calls me her second husband, I've heard.
Yeah.
She's
much more cool than me.
She's wonderful. So, well, why don't you tell me about this? Because I'm looking at it. It's called WellyCon. So is this New Zealand? Okay, WellyCon.
New Zealand has no cases. He has no more cases. There's no COVID there. Right. And so yes, we are ready for conventions. This is not the first time they're running this. So this ongoing convention over the years. We were supporting them for a couple of years already with the prices and games for the games room, and they reached to Mary this past week for the new prices for the new edition, and Mary asked them, "Are you running?" And they say, "Yes, we are running. This is no COVID in New Zealand." So yes, here it is.
That is fantastic. So my question is, did they run? I guess they ran last year too. Maybe not, because they did have COVID there. Yes. Right, but then
last year there was no convention, but back then there was. Yes.
Right. So now, since New Zealand is COVID free, has been, I'm assuming nobody can travel there. I think that they've basically locked down borders. So this will be a New Zealander only convention. I should reach out to Amanda Milne of Shillmill Games to see what she's going to be doing. Hopefully, New Zealand's a pretty big country. I'm not sure that everybody can go there, but this is great news that we will have a convention. And I'm looking at one of the photos just of like a previous year, I guess. And it's not an insignificant size, it looks like. This is the main gaming room, 10, 20, 30.
Mary told me that this is a convention for about 1,000 players. So as you call them, local one, correct? This is the
1,000 is, not insignificant.
Yep.
I would call that like a regional convention, right? A local convention, like, under 500. Once you get to 1,000 or so, I'm making the statement up. It's kind of a regional. So
because you're influencers, don't hesitate. We are influencers. You call them
regional. That's a regional convention for New Zealand. So one of the big cities there has Wellington in WellyCon 10. Though that was a picture in 2018. So I don't know which one is the current WellyCon that they're doing, but kudos to them. Very happy. I hope we can report. This is in June, by the way, June 4th to June 6th. And I wish them all the best in running this. It's going to be a fantastic thing to get things going.
And do you want to hear the most funny part of this news?
Most funny. Go ahead.
Yeah. Your prediction for this year was that Gen Con will be the first one, so you lost predictions.
No. You suck. No, I said Gen Con would be the first major convention to run.
This one is regional. This is a big one.
No, you are terrible. Oh, if you don't give me points, and if Gen Con does, I don't even remember exactly what I said. I might have even said PGG Con. No, I might have said
lawyers.
We're gonna get the lawyers involved. I'm getting my lawyers. You get your lawyers. They'll fight over it. That is funny, Ignacy. Thank you for that one. I love doing this show. All right, so so what you just mentioned a little while ago, up at the top of the show, that there's shipping issues in Chinese ports, and I have something related to that. And you also linked something here about a global container loss. Nearly 3,000 containers were lost at sea within 90 days. I mean, how many? Two ships went down? Oh my gosh. Crazy talk.
I did the whole show on YouTube in December for Polish YouTube, explaining all the delays, because there was so many delays in Polish market, and all major publishers in Poland had delayed products. And I decided to do a whole show. It was like a 40 minutes seminar about the shipment of the products. And I did a ton of research, and I explained players why there is a lack of containers, what does it mean, how it is possible there is no containers at this point. And back then already it was an issue in November and December 2020. And now with this new news, when the containers get lost, the situation is super simple. There is no containers for the products to ship them. So we have a situation, me, Portal Games, and all other publishers, that the product is printed, it sits in a warehouse for the manufacturer, so the game is printed, and yet there is no free container to load it on the ship and ship to America or Europe. So I wanted to bring it up because, once again, I can imagine many players being frustrated. Why this game is delayed? Why my Kickstarter is not sent yet? This is a global problem. Steven can quote this article, but this past week also big piece on this topic on New York Times as well. Never in the history we had a situation that there is no containers to put items on the ship. So I wanted to bring it up so players understand that this is not publishers being lazy, this is not publishers being morons, this is the global problem for all industries. There's no way how we can ship the product from China.
We are 100% reliant on, well, at the lowest level, containers, but also, of course, on the shipping lines, the ports that they visit. So these are all points of failure within the process. They're all potential points of failure, of course, within the process. I'm looking at pictures on the marineinsight.com is the article that you linked here. And they're showing a ship. Look at the name of this ship, which is hysterical. The Maersk Essen. How about that? The Maersk Essen lost 750 containers in the Trans-Pacific heavy weather on the 16th of January. And they're showing toppled containers on the ship. And obviously some of those containers went right into the ocean, which is polluting as well. So there's all kinds of horrible things that happen when something like this happens. So amazing. And it's been something that has affected, when I was president of Stronghold, it's always been an issue. Like, hey guys, okay, I know we're about to finish the game. We're 2-3 weeks out. Schedule a container for me, right? And then a few days later, they say, the fastest we can get you a container is going to be in 4 weeks, and then we have to wait 2 more weeks to load it on a ship. It was like that kind of thing happens all the time, and this just exacerbates the problem. Makes it worse. So very interesting news, Ignacy. I thank you for shedding light on that kind of issue, which affects every industry in the world that makes goods not in the country in which they exist, but in some other country, whether that is in Europe or in China or wherever, right? If I was going from the US to the US, I probably wouldn't have as much of a problem, probably, though they still have to load trucks. And that kind of is part of that issue too. So very interesting. Thank you for that, Ignacy. And I think that's the end of the news. Let's go over to strategy and tactics. All right, some questions this week from our BGG guild. We have Pancho Varas, who's at Pancho Varas, and he says, "Hi, I love the show. I started from the first chapter a few years ago when I was living in Chile, and now I moved to Germany. You are like some old friends who have joined me in the trip. My questions go about expansion. How do you know when it is a right moment to look to working on an expansion?" We've kind of answered this, but we'll take it again. Yeah, I mean, in general, designing a game takes a lot of time, and after that comes playtesting and then printing. So maybe if you wait until sales have exploded, could be a little late, or you might lose the heat of the moment. Ignacy, really, when do we know?
Pancho is perfectly right that it may be too late if you wait after the release of the game. You wait for the buzz, you wait if this is a hot item, and then you have to design, then you have to produce. Whoa, 2 years passed. For most of my titles, and I guess it is true also for Steven, also he had a little bit different business model. We already had a hype. Me from demos convention, so I was visiting America. I was presenting a detective like in March, and the game was released at Gen Con. Steven has a hype for the game from Essen when he was his licensing, so we already know something before the game is released. Of course, sometimes we may be surprised in a bad way or in a good way, but basically we have some initial feedback. So I wrote an article for Meeple Monthly this weekend about the Vienna Connection, this spy game, and in this article I said that we decided to working on Vienna Connection, the spy game, before release of Detective, but after the demos. So I went to America, I ran demos at the Alan Moon's Gathering of Friends. Steven, remember, I was there for a whole week playing Detective with everybody who wanted to play with me, and I got this industry feedback, and they said, "Ignacy, this is something, you have something here." Then I went to the Dice Tower Con in Florida, and I had this whole room, only Detective for 4 days of the convention.
Yep.
I came back to Poland and I said, "Przemysław, write me another story because this is gonna be big." Of course, I might be wrong, but at that point I already had the data, and I said, "Yes,
Right.
it's gonna be great." And we started working on the expansion before the release of the base game.
And how do you decide if an expansion should be more of the same or add something completely new? That was the next part of the question.
Yeah, this is when I'm failing quite often. Me as a designer, I want to surprise everybody. I want to prove how genius I am, and I want to, add a new twist and a new perspective on the game. And I guess players just want more of the thing they already know, more of the thing they already like. They don't want the designer to, show the muscle and change the whole game to something else. So I had situation in some of my expansions I designed that I went too far in changing the base game, adding the new elements, and now I learned that players love the base game and they want more of the same because they love the one thing that they have on the table. So of course it's a difficult decision, but I would vote don't get crazy.
And is there a point where making a new expansion can be a negative or add no value to the game? And I'll start a little bit there. I think for the most part, it's an economic impact. If you do something good, I mean, if you put out something bad, it's going to be negative impact. But if you put out something good, it really becomes an economic thing. If the game is still selling over time, you take out the big games, the Terraforming Marses, the Robinson Crusoes, the detectives, you're always going to do well, and it's always going to add something that the players want if you do something good. So the only time it's negative is really on the publisher side if they release it and there's no demand because the game just didn't deserve another expansion. Honestly?
Yeah. Even if I recall, and we will not say names, but even if I recall some expansion for famous games that people say this expansion is not very fun, it doesn't impact the sales of the base game, which is still selling, and just expansion may have a not awesome reputation, but it will not impact in a bad way the base game, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it too. Prebin Nicholas Leon, who's at Prebulus, on Board Game Geek. Hey guys, I really enjoy the show. Good job showing Tom how wrong he is. Thank you. Thank you, Preben. And thank you, Stephen, for supporting other great podcasts like The Secret Cabal. I love those guys. My question to you is, do you have a dream game you want to design? I think we took this one recently, but can because it's too expensive. Can't because it's too expensive to make, an IP you don't have, not wide enough appeal, won't sell enough, or some other reason. Ignacy, anything you want to do, but
I can mention one. Yes, I can mention one game that I want to do, and I guess I will do at some point, but it's pushed over the years, and it's like 7 years already when I'm pushing it for the next year, because there are always more important and more urgent topics for me. And this game is a 2-player strategy game about Chicago Prohibition time, Al Capone, and all these amazing topics and theme. And I bought a ton of books about the theme. I watched some movies, obviously. I was preparing to create this amazing epic game, but it's a 2-player game. And as we said many times, 2-players games had a ton of respect. Twilight Struggle, good job, but they don't have a huge sales. So it is always for me more important to do the game that will do well for the whole company and do a good sales. And this side project, this epic 2-player game, is always pushed. Okay, I will sit with that next year. So I would not call it maybe a dream game, but the game that I want to do, and always I'm postponing for the next year. So there will be a mafia game about Al Capone and Prohibition for 2 players.
Simon Probst, who's at Lurka on BGG, have you ever had a situation where you played a game that you rejected earlier and then was picked up by another publisher and thought, oh, this is nice what they did to that mechanic, or even the opposite? Wow, they made it even worse. Without saying names, what was it? I have played many games that we passed on, and for the most part, I've had the same feeling as I had the first time, or I said, wow, they did a great job with this. I don't think I've ever said, ooh, this is worse than it was in the prototype. The one thing I always point out is, because there was a kerfuffle about it, a controversy, is the and it's not that I passed on, is that we had this issue with Fantasy Flight Games regarding the Merchant of Venus. And we both thought we had rights, and in the end, they did the game. And I thought they did a phenomenal job in the implementation of that game in the end. And in fact, better than I would have done. Bigger company with lots of resources. And of course, they had to prove how good they could do it at that point, because of the differences in what was going on with the license. But Ignacy, have you had anything similar to this happen to you?
I recorded the whole show here in Poland for Polish YouTube, 10 games that I had a chance to publish for Polish market, and I refused, and I regret it so much. So on this list, this famous anecdote about me refusing to release King of Tokyo, that was not very brilliant on my side. I passed on Star Realms, huge deck building hit. I passed on Clank.
Oh gosh, you really have some major passes.
That was
there.
one of the most popular video on my Polish channel, because people were just laughing out loud on how I have no clue about the board game industry and how I was missing the hot items.
I think you've done pretty good. I think you've done pretty good without them. But yeah, those, you just named like 4 games that are fairly much mega hits.
And on purpose, I recorded this episode of my show with my sales team, and they were crying on in front of the camera when they heard which titles they would be able to sell if only the boss is a little bit more smart.
Great stuff. So John Gallant, who's at Cheeseburger on Board Game Geek. Hey, John, I know John. Why does MSRP exist when literally no online retailer uses it? All right. So John does have a little bit of an agenda here. I love John. He is He's a manager at a friendly local game store. No problem. And I mean, the simple answer to this is that you have to set some price at which you believe this game will be sold, and it is directly reflected of the prices that come before it. So we sell, if it's the standard chain here, we sell to distribution at a percent of MSRP, and I'll tell you, it's 40% of MSRP approximately, and they sell to retailers at 50% of MSRP, and then retailers sell at the full MSRP, friendly local retailers. However, we cannot, it is illegal too in the United States, to fix the price, to say, we're insisting that you sell this. It's a good, it's a commodity. You can sell it at whatever you want. Now, there are some rules around that, and you can create things called MAP, minimum advertised pricing, which will constrain what you can advertise it at, but still, in the end, you're actually able to sell goods at whatever you want to sell them at. Industries don't have to sell to you if they believe you're not someone who's playing fairly in the sandbox, but price fixing is just not legal in its general format. So you set this price, what we will start the selling at, and it flows up the chain or down the chain as you want to take a look at that. Ignacy, any other comments on MSRP?
I would be very careful with me talking about this topic. In general, I think there's a huge problem in general for all industries. The customers don't even care about the regular price. They're buying only if something is on sale or something is discounted. We are in this civilization time that we are all spoiled, and if something is not 30% off, we will not buy it. I don't agree with that approach. I try to support the good stores with board games or books or comic books, and I pay full price, but I'm rare and dying.
You're a dying breed.
Yeah, breed. I don't agree with today's world, and is one of the topics, but I'm not going to do the rant about that.
Yeah, and just to continue on that thought process, it is very important that if you have a local game store, that you support that local game store, especially if you use that local game store. If you get your gaming group from there, if you meet there, if you go there, if you look around there, you absolutely should. I'm going to say must support it. I mean, they're not a catalog that you look through and then you go buy someplace else. Not cool. If you're going there to sit, to play, to hang out, to browse, buy something. Not every time, but support the local game store to whatever extent that you can. And that was hold back the comeback that we had. And in fact, ICV2, where we get a lot of our news from, just had a support your local game and comic book store drive with t-shirts. I got one of those, and all the proceeds were going to local game stores and comic book stores. In fact, I have the t-shirt downstairs in my house right now. I should have shown it. I'll show that next time. It was a nice little thing that they did, again, to help comic book stores. So that's it for the questions for the week. I believe we've got to go over to play testing.
I have a great question. I wrote it in perfect grammar.
You lie.
Okay. This is not a good
I rewrote
question,
the question. Yes. It's a great question, though. Go ahead. It's a very
do you have any stories about someone visiting your home and being stunned when they see your game collection? I of course mean your friends who are not geeks, or maybe a plumber who wants to fix your sink and he sees your collection, or anybody else who is just random visitor and see all these games and what he says.
Yeah. So this is actually, this is the most fantastic question you've ever asked, because literally every person that shows up at my house who's not a gamer, walks in the front door and the first thing that they see, literally the first thing they see, is my wall, which is 30 feet long. I know exactly because I put 5 Kalex shelves there. It's like 30 feet and 2.5 inches, that wall. It's completely full of board games. It's over the Kalex full of board games. I got to cull the collection. And every person that walks in after they like say hello to me turns and says one of two things. Either, wow, that's a great library. And then they double take and realize it's not books. Or they say, oh my God, that's a lot of games. Every time. And we have people coming all the time for, like you said, plumbing, refrigerator repair. We got to talk to somebody about landscaping. I mean, right now we're doing a whole bunch of projects in the house that will be starting soon. And we've had so many contractors come over just to talk to us in the last month that you would not believe it. And everyone goes, what you guys do a lot of board gaming, I think, right? So yeah, it's a constant thing in this house. Ignacy, how about you?
He goes back to home and he tells his wife, "You will not believe
what I just saw." How about you?
For me, my only friends are geeks. So of course I'm not surprising them, but I have these funny moments when my daughter have her friends visiting our house, and these kids see all these games, and they look at these very surprised, and my daughter says, "Oh no, this is my dad. He loves games," and they're like, "What?" And I'm always this cool dad who has all these games, and yes, I'm this cool dad. I play games. Kids, and then they disappear in my daughter's rooms, so I don't see them anymore. But I'm very happy to be this cool dad in the block. I have games.
And then if they even tried to play one of them, they'd be like, their minds would explode because most of your games are way too hard for them, right?
Yes.
They're not gamers, so they won't understand the kind of work, the concepts that go into most of the games that are on your shelves.
Kanban and on Mars are not student friendly.
Yeah, exactly right. So we ask you now, do you have any stories about someone visiting your home and being stunned when they see your game collection? Ignacy is going to create a thread right now on Board Game Geek in our guild for you to answer our question to you. Please go to our guild on Board Game Geek and find our play testing thread for this question and post your answer to it. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Let's get over to the final scoring. Thank you all so much for listening. Help us spread the word about this podcast by telling your friends to download Board Games Insider wherever they like to get their podcasts. To ask us questions for our strategy and tactics segment, you must post them in the correct thread in our guild on Board Game Geek. Similarly, to answer our question to you from our playtesting segment, go to our guild on Board Game Geek and look for the thread with this episode's question. Board Games Insider has a Facebook page, so please like us on Facebook. Also, on Facebook, please like Ignacy's page and Steven's page /Portal Publishing and /Podfather Gaming. Our websites are portalgames.pl, portalgamesus.com, and podfathergaming.com. Please go there, sign up for the newsletters, and get up-to-the-minute information on what's happening at Portal Games and with the Podfather. On social media, you can speak directly to Ignacy and Steven on Twitter at portalgamesus and at Podfather Gaming. Same on Instagram. And on YouTube, the channel names are Portal Games Movies, Portal Games Gameplays, and the Podfather of Gaming. We hope to see you at an upcoming convention, which may be sooner than you think. Board Games Insider was professionally edited by Matthew Jude from This Game is Broken podcast. If you'd like him to edit your podcast, please contact him on Twitter or email at thisgameisbrokenpodcast@gmail.com. So, Ignacy, I mentioned at the top that I had some news-ish to talk about at the end. So it's about Gen Con again. And, signs are really pointing that it's going to happen. And I'm making this statement now. If Gen Con happens, and if I get my vaccine, and the latter looks like 100% guaranteed based on US and Florida rollout, I'm definitely going to Gen Con. But it even goes further. If Gen Con isn't running, it's not running at all, because they can't or don't want to or whatever, as long as I have my vaccine, I am going to Indianapolis during Gen Con week. I know a lot of people there and in the surrounding areas, and I'm just going to go and visit people. I'm going to go there, have some nice time gaming, have some nice meals and drinks, seeing friends in Indy, and just hanging out. It's a great city. So if anybody's going to be in Indianapolis for Gen Con week, whether it's running or not, I'm going to be there because vaccines look really good here at least. So see you there, I hope.
That's a very, very cool news. Like, indeed, if we are talking about all those people who have vaccinated, can just meet, even without exhibitor hall, even if there's no Gen Con, but just hang out, play in the hotels, meet. That's amazing. I would go. I will not, because I will not be vaccinated, but definitely at least have this spirit of being in Indiana in the summer, playing games. Yep.
Socializing and just, being there as friends and gamers, as to celebrate the summer convention season, even if it's not happening. So very excited about that. Everybody out there. So take care. Thank you for listening to us, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you.